Hello and welcome to my YouTube channel, Whiskyandwool. This is my Knitter's Life series, Season 4, Episode 1. Yay! It is January 6th of 2024. My name is Shannon. You can find me as Whiskyandwool on Ravelry and on Instagram. On Instagram, there's 2 extra O's in the word wool. So yeah, how are you? I hope you are doing well. I thought I would just introduce myself. I did it recently, like probably about right after Rhinebeck, I think, because I ended up with a lot of new viewers. But I think one of the things that I like to do, because I renumber the series, Knitter's Life series, depending on the season, and then episode 1, I think that I do that because I think it makes it more accessible to people who are new. So you don't feel like you have to go back and watch like 200 episodes. Instead, you can just watch one season. And so since it's the beginning of the year, episode 1, season 4. And so, yeah, I just think I like that. I like that model versus like tallying up the episodes one after the other or trying to name them. It's just too hard, and I don't want people to be put off by a name or anything like that. So I call it Knitter's Life because it is a little bit mostly about my knitting or crafting. I also am a spinner. I am by trade, my day job is, sorry, I'm like fiddling with stuff here. My day job is university professor and administrator. I used to teach classes in the arts until the program that I was teaching for closed, which is sort of the sad state of education these days, is that arts programs are often the first ones to go. There's still an arts program. It's pretty robust. It just focuses more on 2D. I'm a 3D artist, so I do sculpture, mostly metal sculpture, but I incorporate other materials. I also do love to draw, and I dabble in, I have a really illustrative quality to my drawing. For me, drawing was always about a means to an end. So it was like I would draw something that I was planning to make in 3D, and it would help me work out some of the construction issues, whether it's like a garment or sculpture. So I did spend my first career was as a knitwear designer on 7th Avenue in New York City. I did that for about 10 years before I had 2 little ones at home, and it became untenable to work in that industry and also be a parent in the way that I wanted to parent. So I quit to go back to grad school, and I got my counseling degree as well as a MFA, a Master's of Fine Arts for studio art. And that program, we learned a little bit about everything, and it was all really about who the people we were in the program with. And I still look back to those days, those years of working on that program, and it was just so nice. And those people I'm still friends with, and yeah, they're just awesome. So my counseling degree actually propelled me into the position that I'm in now. I work for a big department called Family Science and Human Development. We look at families. I like to say we're the working with people major, where you can do anything as long as you're working with people. So people are everywhere. So you can work anything. You can do anything with it. So we really focus on the classes that I teach in particular, focus on counseling methods and so teaching counseling technique to undergrads, and like relationship building stuff. So I do a lot of that type of thing. So yeah, I kind of have like the psychology counseling-ish mixed with art. It could be art therapy, but it's not. There's certainly some, if there was a Venn diagram, there'd be some overlap. I don't do art therapy at all, though. I know about it. I'm aware of it. I've practiced it a little bit. But yeah, it's not my jam. There are people who are experts in it, though. Anyway, I have a little iced coffee. It's a tiny bit late in the day for me to be drinking coffee. I hope this doesn't come back to bite me, but it is just one. It's an espresso that I've iced with milk and a little sugar. So that's me in a nutshell. And what you can expect to see here is, like I said, knitting, a lot of knitting, like traditional sort of knitting podcast type stuff, where I'm talking to you about my current projects. And I do a lot of chatter about color, which I think people seem to like. So I often will film my process of trying to figure out colors, how colors go together. I tend to kind of gravitate towards certain colors that I like. It's interesting because lately the color seasonal theory has reemerged. It was a pretty hot ticket in the early 80s to mid 80s, and then it kind of went by the wayside. I think because it was primarily focused on white skin. So it's reemerged now, retooled for all skin tones, and anyway, I got analyzed in the early 80s or mid 80s, I guess, when I was doing my undergrad. So I know I'm a true spring. So sometimes, like, it's fun. Like, having known my colors for about 40 years, I do tend, like, I think you gravitate towards, or you like the colors that you are. If you've never had your colors done, you maybe don't need to necessarily, or you can maybe figure it out yourself if you don't want to pay a few $100s to have somebody analyze your colors for you. So anyway, I'm getting off track, but I do talk about color. I tend to gravitate towards the colors that are in the spring palette, which I'll put a picture on screen here of what that is. And I use the color wheel and color theory to cross-check sometimes I can put a few skeins together and I know something's off, but the color wheel will help me determine what's off and what I should do. So I talk about that on my channel. So there you can look back at old episodes and you'll see where I'm trying to figure out color palettes for a sweater project that's coming. I will bring out the color wheel and talk about it and talk you through my process. So that seems to be a segment that people really love. I don't have any of that today. And then also I put in clips and things of my life, things that I think you might be interested in. So sometimes there's a little cooking or baking thing, and sometimes there's family stuff. There's lots of cats. I live with 2 cats. One might say I am owned by 2 cats. So I have a 9-year-old British short hair. And I have a soon-to-be 1-year-old Scottish fold who's incredibly mischievous and playful. So he gets a lot of screen time, where my 9-year-old tends to be sort of sleepy. British short hairs are lazy by nature, so he's a super lazy cat who doesn't like to cuddle much. That's also a British short hair thing. It's funny. Okay, I've spent almost 8 minutes. More than 8 minutes giving you my intro. So that's who I am, and that's what you can expect here. I would normally say I'm a sweater knitter, but this year really kind of threw me off. If you are continuing, if you've been here a while, if you've been with me from season 3, you'll know that I moved last year. I found out that I had to move in January, and then I, went through the painful process of looking for a place. I purchased an apartment in an old Ritz-Carlton hotel in the town of West New York. West New York, if you're not familiar, is right across the river from New York. So you may have seen a clip of New York City at the beginning here. We're actually expecting snow today, so I was kind of hoping that it might snow a little bit. It's supposed to snow this afternoon. And I might go out and do a clip of snow. If it actually is snow and not rain, I'll include that, at least a shot from my window, if not outside along the river. So I have a lovely view of New York every time I step out my building. My apartment faces west, so I face away from the city and towards New Jersey, the rest of New Jersey. Yeah, and I actually love where I live. I love my neighborhood so much, and I love the accessibility to the city. I have several friends who live over there, and if I ever do anything that's interesting, like coming up later this month will be Vogue Knitting Live, which this is the first time I've lived in a long, actually probably forever since I've been going. First time I've lived close enough that I'm really literally like probably 20 minutes from the hotel where Vogue Knitting Live will be held, which is exciting because that means I can go whenever friends from who are driving farther away arrive. I can time my arrival pretty close to their arrival, whether it's like, and I can go any day or I can go all 3 days. I haven't bought my tickets yet, so I don't know. I need to cross-check with one friend in particular to find out when she's planning to go. Yeah, we'll talk about that later. That'll be in an episode coming up, maybe episode 2 or 3, where I might be planning, and then by 3 I'll have gone and I can share with you. I certainly don't need more yarn. So I want to start today by talking about, every year I do a recap of what I've knit, and the last few years I've been trying really hard to get rid of stash, like knit through my stash. And I often will see a pattern that I want to make, and then I'll look in my stash to see if I have the yarn. And frequently I'll have most of the yarn, like maybe I just need to buy one color. So that's kind of been the way I've operated. And this year in particular, because I moved, I was painfully aware of how much yarn I had. So I really, this was a record year for me in terms of like knitting through my stash. So I'm just going to take you through that wrap up. I don't really like to do the look at here's all the things I knit thing. I don't like to watch those videos, so I don't want to make a video like that. So sorry if that's what you're expecting. Instead, I'm just going to recap in a summary of what I've made. So this year I knit 52,909 yards, which is roughly the equivalent of 132 skeins, about 400 yards a piece. So like 132 skeins of fingering weight yarn. I primarily knit with fingering weight. Although I love DK for socks and hats. So all the socks that I've knit this past year and in the foreseeable future will be DK weight. I'm sort of curious to see, I have a feeling it might be very painful, but I'm sort of curious to see what it might be like to knit colorwork socks, and I think in that case I'll use fingering weight. I have lots of mini skeins, so plenty of mini skeins to use for fingering weight. Okay, so 52, that's a record year. My average, when I flip back through the years that I did in the past, I probably averaged around 30 to 40,000 yards. So this is really way above and beyond. And I think it's because of the scrappy blankets I made. I made 3 scrappy blankets. When I make a blanket that I'm just roughing out and I'm not following a pattern, I do a 1x1 rib pattern because I like the way that looks, and I usually use huge needles, so like US size 17 or a US size 15 needles. And I knit in a big fat rib stitch. I actually have, you can see right now on my couch and furniture, there are 3 1x1 rib blankets laying out. So this past year, I decided to try making a 1x1 rib blanket using scraps, primarily fingering weight, but some DK were worked in as well. And hold on one second, I'm gonna grab, so this is I made 2 cat size blankets. This is a very small, like probably 2 foot by 3 foot, but this is what I'm talking about, this really chunky 1x1 rib. In these scrappy blankets, what I did was I held 10 to 12 strands of yarn together, knit 10 to 12, I would say fingering weight. If I had a DK in there, I counted that as 2 strands. And I knit on US size 17 needles. So I made 3 of those. I made one black one, I made a purple one, and I made a yellow one, and I gave them away. And then I made 2 cat size blankets. So this is the pink one, I made a turquoise one. These are just great. My cats love to snuggle up on knitted blankets. I'm going to make a couple more just because I like to wash them frequently. And what's cool about them is that they're primarily superwash fingering weight yarn. I just throw them in the washing machine and then I let them air dry. And this one has actually shrunk a little bit, but it's fine because it's still big enough for the cats to lay on. And in terms of my stitch count, I think I cast on 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16, 18, 20, 22, 24, 26, 28, 30, 32, 34 stitches. Okay, that's the recipe. Then just knit for however long you want. But yeah, these are great. What's also awesome about this, I know I told you I wasn't going to do a recap of everything I knit, but I'm sorry. These are just really exciting, and I forgot that I made them earlier this year. What's really great about this is that you can use like a 50-yard piece of yarn, or you could use the ugliest yarn. No one's going to see it because it's just going to blend in. I did all of mine very tonally. You could do whatever you want though. Like for this one, I picked all of the tonal scraps of pink, and you can throw in mini skeins or full skeins. Yeah. So those were fun. I did 2 cat size. I did 3 full scrappy blankets. I usually knit a sweater a month. This year I only made 8 sweaters. In 2023 I only made 8 sweaters. So I was a little short, but I was busy doing other things, primarily packing and moving and settling in, doing some home improvement stuff. But I also knit 4 vests. So if you count the vests and the sweaters together, then I pretty much did 1 per month. This year, who the hell knows? Who knows what's going to happen? I have a granddaughter who is 3, and I am always knitting for her. So I knit 3 sweaters for her this past year. I also made her 1 baby blanket because I had made a baby blanket for her. I used the Vertices Unite baby blanket. It's probably the 4th or 5th one I made. That's my go-to if someone's having a baby. That's the baby blanket I make. So I had made one for her when they were pregnant, when my son was pregnant, my son and daughter-in-law were pregnant with her. We didn't know the gender, and then when we knew the gender, this was the blanket that I had planned to make. So I made that for her this year just to get that yarn out of my stash. And then I made 14 pairs of socks. Those were all DK weight socks. And I made 6 hats and 2 shawls. And the shawls were gifts for my sons. I think that's it. So it's a total of 46 projects. And, the big yarn eater in that whole thing were these scrappy blankets. Those just gobbled up a ton of yarn. I'm an avid Ravelry project page user, so I know other people keep handwritten journals. I don't find any use in that. I like to be able to use the computer to sort and see things. So I use Ravelry to log my projects, and I'm posting notes for myself, and I really rarely use the private notes tool. I just make my notes public. So that like if I'm making modifications, you can go and read what modifications I made on my project page. So yeah, that's where you can I probably have my stitch counts and stuff and the dimensions of the finished like human size blankets if you were interested in looking at that. And also the yardage, more or less. So this yardage is also estimated because I did use a lot of scraps and I had to kind of estimate how many yards I used. But I would guess, I think, I could look it up real quick. I think those projects, those human size scrappy blankets used about 3,000 yards is what I want to say. They used, let's see what this says. Oh my gosh, there's so much yarn. Yeah, so I cast on 65 stitches for the human size ones, and they came out 45 by 65. 6,000 yards. Those scrappy blankets use 6,800 yards. It's a lot of yardage. But it was so satisfying because I mostly used scrap and then some ugly single skeins that I really didn't know what I was going to do. When I was building my stash, this goes back about 5 or more years, when I was building a stash, I purchased a lot of single skeins because I was enamored with Stephen West. So I purchased a lot of indie dyed single speckly skeins, and Now I have a ton in my stash. I have about 40. I just did a count this morning. Of my single skeins. And, that's pretty good because I think at one point I had 100 or so, just one skein of a color, which was just bananas when I think about it. Like, what was I thinking? How many Stephen West shawls was I going to make? It was probably enough for 20 shawls. But I wanted options. So now I have a lot of those single skeins. I'm knitting through them, comboing them up in creative ways to just like get rid of them, and work through them. Sorry, I still have a little bit of a cold. So if you watch my Vlogmas, my last Vlogmas, I talked about I ended up catching RSV from my granddaughter. She was sick when I got there, and within 2 days I was sick as a dog. And so I've spent the last 2 weeks doing a lot of sniffling and stuff. I'm medicated, and I saw a doctor twice. So anyway, that's what's happening here in terms of the congestion and stuff. I should be like the antibiotic that I'm on finishes tomorrow. So by next week, hopefully, I feel good. Anyway. So that is what I knit and how many yards I knit. I also like to compare. I had a very low buy year. I probably had the lowest buy year that I've had. Actually, no, it's pretty comparable to last year. So in 2022, I purchased 13,000 yards. In 2023, I purchased 11,700 yards. And about half of that yardage, about 600 or so yards, 6,000 or so yards of that went right into a project. So I purchased it with the idea that this is going to be used for this. It's super rare that these days, it's super rare that I'm not knitting using stash to some degree just to get through it. At some point I'll share like my stash storage. I've talked about it before. There's some in a closet over here, mostly fiber, and then there's some over to my right in a table storage system. And there's starting to be some space in there, which is exciting. And I think after this year, there will be a lot more space. I'll be able to probably take a lot of what's in the closet over here and move it into the storage table to my right. And that would be great. I want to work closer where, my someday yarn is in the store. And when I need a yarn for a project, I'm buying it and casting that project on. But, I don't foresee having no stash. I can't imagine that because there's always some gorgeous yarn that you just have to take home and you don't know what you're going to do with it. And then it ends up sitting around while you figure out what you're going to make. Hopefully not 2 or 3 years like some of mine right now. Okay, so I purchased, as I said, about almost 12,000 yards. Half of that went into projects. I'm also a yarn spinner, so often I will spin with a project in mind, but sometimes I just spin for the hell of it. I have not spun any yarn since all my Christmas stuff went up, primarily because where my Christmas tree is where my spinning wheel usually hangs out, and my spinning wheel usually hangs out in a place where I'm able to just take it, bring it in front of me and start spinning. So I just didn't, I'm in a tight space, so I just don't really have the space. My Christmas stuff is coming down tomorrow or Monday at the latest, like early next week. I only have it up, like I would have taken it down. I would definitely say I would take it down tomorrow, except that my kids are supposed to come over for second Christmas. We were supposed to have it last week, and we didn't because I was sick. And now this week, it sounds like one of them is sick. So we might be postponing again, but I just can't have my Christmas stuff up for another week. I've been home for the last 12 days looking at it. It's gorgeous, but it's time for it to go, for it to be put away, to be loved in another year. And I have some home improvement projects on the horizon, so I want to just make room for that stuff, because that stuff will be hanging around in my living room for a couple days while I work on it. So yeah, so I did not spend much, but I spun about 5,000 yards, 4,854 yards. So all in, I acquired through spinning or purchasing 16,600 yards, but I knit 52, almost 53,000. So that gives me a net of negative 36,000 yards, which is the equivalent of 90 skeins. So yay me. Very, very happy about that. So yeah, that is a freaking amazing. I've never done that well. Probably the next closest was last year, where I had negative 7,000 yards. So huge difference. I more than quadrupled the amount. Actually 5 times the amount of yarn. 2022 I wasn't too rigorous with I wanted to knit from my stash, but I purchased quite a lot of yarn that year. Just looking back through the years, I think I have going all the way back to 2018. Maybe not. Yeah, around there. Who knows? So yeah, that is my, here we go. That's my tallies, my yearly tallies. I don't think I'm going to reach 52,000 this year, but I'd be really happy if I end up with a big percentage of negative. I have already purchased some yarn a little bit just for socks, and I purchased fiber too, not knowing what I'm going to do with it. But I purchased yarn for a particular project. My birthday's in February, and I have a birthday cast on, which I'm going to talk to you about down the road when I get there, when we're ready. For now, for the rest of this episode, I'm just going to take you through the projects I have, the whips I have on the needles. I don't have any finished objects. Oh, I wanted to just tell you what I'm wearing. I'm wearing Ward by Hudson and Forge Company, and I knit it out of Corrie worsted. This was a sweater that I knit last year in 2023. I knit it pretty early on. I think I knit it in like March or so. I love it. I love the fit of it. It's just this like drop shoulder, boxy sweater. Perfect. Love this silhouette for my body. I like many silhouettes for my body, but this is one in particular that I really like. And I actually have on the needles a new cast on, which I'm going to show you, my New Year's Day cast on. That'll be at the end. Let me start with what I am almost done with. So this is oh my God, you can see. If I wasn't recording today, this sweater would be done. I mean, it might be done tonight anyway. You can see like I have about 6 inches of sleeve left. My knitting, so if you've been here a while, if you've been here before Vlogmas of 2023, like up through November of 2023, these first 3 whips are going to be familiar, and you're going to see I didn't get too much further. This is the one I made the furthest progress on. So Crescendo Blouse by who the heck? I can't remember. Oh, the Knit Pearl Girl. And I'm knitting it out of, this is some of the yarn that I purchased in 2023 specifically for this project. I'm knitting it using Aimée Kumo. It's her Suri Silk base, and it's a lace weight. I'm holding it double with some Deep Stash. This is actually from Olan. I had 2 skeins of this sock yarn, so it's indie dyed sock yarn, and it's the colorway Obelisk. So that's Olan. She no longer dyes, or she's taking a break. Who knows? She's one of my favorite dyers, though. I love her color sense. So you will see a lot of Olan, because I have a lot of Olan in my stash. And yeah, so here's the Aimée Kumo. What I do for Lobby and Aimée, like I live in the US, so shipping costs from Lobby and Aimée are really steep. But generally, what I've realized, whenever she has a sale, if she does 20% off or if she does free shipping, you can get a pretty good deal with her yarn. So that's generally, I wait till those times of the year, and then that's when I purchase from her. So that's when I purchase this yarn right here. This is the third skein. So, and as I said, I had 2 skeins of this. So I had a little over 900 yards of this, and I bought 4 skeins of this Flora Morganite. I'm not mad about having an extra skein at all. In fact, I may end up in my birthday sweater. We'll see. What I did with my second skein, after I finished knitting the body, I divided what was left in half by weight. And then I dug into my stash to find something that was close, and I found this skein of some old stash that's a similar tone. It's more pink than peach. And I knit on this sleeve as far as I could until I ran out. And I literally ran out like 1 row into the ribs. So that peach color is just the cuff. And I really don't think you can tell. Like, there's no, I mean, if you look close, you'd see there's like these blue speckles instead of the rusty brown and green that you see up here, but it's fine. I think it's fine. So I'm curious to see if I make it the same distance with this. It should be more or less the same because I did separate them by weight. But I was kind of excited to think I might use this up. This will go in some other project at some point because this is like about 280 yards still. So yeah, that's the crescendo blouse. Almost done. I will be wearing it in the next episode because it will most certainly be a finished object by then. I do really love the silhouette and the lace work up here. It's just really pretty. The sleeves ended up a little bit snugger than I like, but I'm hoping in blocking maybe I can, make them a little bit wider for me so that they suit me more. My next oldest whip, or actually this might be even older than this, I think I cast it on before this, is Stripey Unicorn by Joji Locatelli. I did make progress on this since you last saw it. I have split for the sleeves and I'm now knitting on the body. I'm like a ½ inch in on the body. But I think this is going to be great. I loved the silhouette, the way it looked on Joji. It's a round yoke, but she's got some shaping in there. I kind of screwed up the way I was carrying the yarn in the back, so it's a little janky, but yeah, I switched up how I was switching out the yarn. It just was, I was trying stuff I probably shouldn't have tried. I am using some spin cycle that I had in my stash. It's the colorway Deep Bump, dyed in the wool. And I am knitting it with, this was newly purchased yarn for 2023. This is Les Garçons British Sport. And it's so nice. It's such a nice yarn. They have it spun, I believe it's spun in the UK, sourced in the UK and spun there. And this is the colorway Edith's Butler. So, Les Garçons, I really, really love their colors. I think Vincent is also a spring, just FYI. And he's the master behind the dye. I don't know what Max is. I don't know if he's an autumn or a winter, but he's one of those two, I believe. Who knows, though? I might be wrong. I suspect winter because of the way, like the color choices he chooses. Yeah, so that is Stripey Unicorn. I kind of lost interest, or like it kind of was a slog, like going through the yoke because of the way she had you do the decreases. Like it was a big repeat with the increases. Like you increase. Oh, let me not show you my ugly back. Let me show you the front. So you increase, like I had a bunch of stitch markers all the way around. and the yoke, and you were like increasing here, increasing there. Like it was never the same every increase row, which was really a bit of a drag. Like it just wore on me, and I ended up like putting this down more often than not, just because I was tired of it. I was tired of having to think so much. But now that I'm past all of that and I'm in the body, it should move along pretty fast, especially once I get this done. So this will absolutely. So the way I operate, like I'm not a monogamous knitter at all. I kind of like to just go with the flow and pick up whatever I'm feeling. But when I get close to finishing something, I just like, I'm like a horse with a bit in its mouth. I'm just like run right towards that and get that done. So yeah, so this will definitely take priority, and then I'll probably shift over to the stripy unicorn until the body's done and I'm onto the sleeves and stuff. This next project I have not made, I would say probably no progress on, since you maybe last saw it, if you've been here since before Vlogmas. This is the Rumble Raglan by Lydia Morrow, and I am doing a unique version of this using some hand spun yarn. That's the peach. So this is actually fiber from Olan, but it reminded me of the Grand Canyon, like these red rocks with some teal green and lots of sparkle in it. It's a merino camel blend. And the colors that I'm using along with that are a collection. Let me see if I can show it to you like this. A collection of bright colored minis in blues and greens. Ah, there it goes. Run away, mini. In blues and greens like this, and turquoises. And I'm doing kind of like a color change throughout, and I recently changed to a second color here. So part of the slow knitting with this for me was trying to figure out what colors, how far to go. And Lydia, so this is my second Rumble Raglan. My first one was 3 colors. If you do 3 colors, she tells you when to change colors. But if you do 2 colors, she doesn't. And she also doesn't tell you when to switch up the blocks. So you're doing a 2x2 rib pattern, and then you're switching them. But she doesn't tell you when to do that with the 2-color version. And technically, though I'm using minis, this is a 2-color version because it's peach all the way through, and then the mini skeins are all together counting as 1 color, and then I'm just switching them here and there. So yes, it was a little bit, gave me like pause because I needed to think about it, and I needed to figure out like what was gonna work for me. So yeah, that is the Rumble Raglan. It's a short sleeve sweater. If I have enough yarn, I'm gonna make it elbow length, like down to like here instead of like t-shirt length. It is also the other modification that I'm doing with the Rumble Raglan, and I did it with my first one. I knit a size 6, which is the size that Lydia is wearing in the photo, which I probably put on screen. I just was scared of negative 10 inches of ease. I don't think I'd be comfortable. Like in my younger years, absolutely I would have done that, no problem. But these days, like, no. I'm particularly conscious of my middle. Like, I don't want my belly rolls to be hugged. I would like them to be able to hide. So yeah, I'm doing size 10 and, size 6, which is pretty much like, I think either an inch or 2 of positive ease for my size bust. So yeah, it fit perfectly before. And I actually even ended up like the t-shirt sleeve ended up having ease in it, which was really nice. It really gives it more of that t-shirt feel. All right, these next 2 are new whips. This is for Julie. I talked about wanting to knit this in the past, and I managed to cast it on while I was away, even though I wasn't feeling well. I kind of had this like tiny hope that I might finish it while I was still in Texas, where my granddaughter, my son, daughter-in-law, and granddaughter all live now. And if you haven't been here a while, they lived in Maine. They lived in New York City, right across the river, practically on sightline from where I live now. But they moved to Texas during the pandemic because my son lost his job and it was too expensive, and so they moved back. My daughter-in-law is from Texas, so they moved back to her hometown, El Paso, and then they stayed about a year and then moved to Maine for her to go to grad school to become a nurse, and then they moved back to Texas to be with her mom, who was sick. Her mom has since died, but they had already committed to my daughter-in-law in particular had committed to a job there, so she just decided to be there so that she could go through the grieving process with her father. So yeah, they're there. They moved there in October of 2023, so they've just been there a couple months. And so I had this little tiny hope that perhaps I would finish this sweater while I was there, but I did not. I had to put it aside because I was still knitting socks, and I really don't like knitting to a deadline. So I've got to work out the sock problem, the sock thing, the Christmas sock thing for all my children and their partners. I got to get going on that early so that I can knit at my leisure and not knit a sock I can take 6 weeks to knit a sock, not have to knit one in 5 days. So, I mean, I made it, but barely. Anyway, this is a mashup of the Anchor sweater by Petite Knit and the Crescendo blouse by the Knit Pro Girl. I took the Anchor sweater body and stitch count, and I modified it ever so slightly. I just needed a couple extra stitches to do the lace pattern. And what I did was the first 2 diamonds on her little version. And this is all using stash. So I'm so excited. This will be more stash out of my stash. More stash yarn knit into projects. So yeah, two little diamonds. I can't wait to block this. And I'm knitting with very, very similar yarn. It's not the same, but similar enough. I just so happen to have 2 skeins of this indie dyed yarn from Garn Story that I stashed away, I don't even know how long ago, 4 or 5 years ago. And I had 2 skeins of this Surrey silk from, I think it's from Lavender Loon, if I'm not mistaken. The tag's right here. So I have enough to do, and if she freaking loves this Surrey. I was wearing my daily pullover, which was another sweater I knit earlier this year. That I knit, I've knit several daily pullovers. The one I made most recently was made from Lobby and Aimée, a strand of Helix and a strand of Kumo held together. And it came out so good. So I was wearing that my first couple days in Texas, and she was just like, oh my gosh, what is that fabric? It's so soft. I love it. And all I was thinking was, oh my God, you're gonna love this sweater. So if she loves this, I will make her more. But yeah, so it's Lavender Loon, and it is the colorway Tinder. Yeah, Baby Surrey and Silk. Exactly the same as Kumo. All these Surrey silk blends, lace weights are the same. So it just so happened that they just really went well together. And I was slightly concerned that the fabric was going to end up being a lot of white, but you can see it really isn't. And she loves these colors. So she loves purple. Purple's her favorite, she told me several times. So I've split for the sleeves, and I am knitting on the body. So this could be a very fast knit. I could finish this in I'll probably have this done by the next time I see you, and I may even have it shipped. But I will film a little clip of it if I in fact end up doing that. So yeah, so excited by that. One more project. My New Year's Eve cast on. Let me grab it and show you that. Okay. I think I talked about this book in a previous episode. I just don't remember which and when. But I purchased last year Marianne Oh my goodness, I'm gonna mess this up. I'm gonna butcher well, you can see who it is, Marion. Is it Isager? I think that's it. It's a Knitting Life. So she was a knitwear designer in the, if I'm not mistaken, in the 60s, 70s, and maybe 80s. But I saw her sweater. The book is gorgeous. I went over it. Oh, in Vlogmas 1, I talked about the book. So if you go back to the very end, the last like maybe 5 minutes of Vlogmas 1, I talked about this project and stuff. So I've since cast it on. I'm casting on Scottish check, or I cast on Scottish check, which is this sweater right here. It is, so it's pretty much the silhouette of the sweater I'm wearing, or that is my intention anyway. I will be making, let me just try to find one where she's, nope, cannot find one where she's far away. I thought there was one from a distance, but apparently not. Nope. Here's another version of it using blue and brown. But I have black and white yarn. I have had this black and white yarn in my stash for a long, long time. I bought it at Rhinebeck probably in 2016. It's Green Mountain Spinnery. They're 4-ply. Do I have a ticket? I don't have a ball band. Believe it's 4-ply. Can't remember the name of the base, but in natural white and natural black. I used this same exact yarn to make some mitts in 2023, and I'm holding with the white one strand of silk mohair. This is just some extra from a previous project that I've had laying around. It's Ito Sensei, which is a very affordable mohair. It's $16 for 25 grams, which is great. That's a great price when you're used to paying, indie dyed. So the sweater is like most old sweater patterns. It's bottom up. So, and knit in pieces, but you know me, I can't knit bottom up in pieces. If I'm going to do bottom up, it's going to be in the round. So I cast on in the round. So I've got my front and back here together, and you start with a 3x3 rib bottom, and then you get into the color work. This is mosaic, which surprised me. I thought I was doing stranded color work, all over stranded color work, but it's actually mosaic. And it's okay. Like, I was just a little taken aback. Like, I was like, oh my God, no, another mosaic sweater. Because I did the mosaic vests that Andrea Mowry made for Rhinebeck this year. Tessellated vest and pullover. I did 2 vests. And anyway, so here I am doing a mosaic knit. It's fine. It's totally fine. What I'll do, it is the same construction basically as the ward. So I'll knit in the round up to the armpit, and then when I split for the sleeves, I'll knit back and forth. So flat for the front and flat for the back, and then join the shoulders, however she has us join the shoulders, and then I'll knit the sleeves, which I assume are bottom up. Yeah. So I'll cross that bridge. I'll probably knit them in the round instead of flat, because who wants to seam an underarm? Not me. So this way I'll just have an armhole seam that I'll have to stitch, and then a shoulder seam that hopefully I'll be able to do through like a 3-needle bind off. But I really freaking love this fabric that I'm getting with the mohair held, and then the black doesn't have any mohair held. So, and that's the way the pattern was written. So I didn't make any. My only mod is like knitting it in the round. So that was my New Year's Day cast on. I ended up just knitting on it most of New Year's Day, even though I had these socks hanging over my head. But the socks are done now, so I can just stream through this stuff. So yeah, I think 5 whips is plenty. I have many plans though. I use my bullet journal to kind of match, because you can kind of do it on Ravelry, but it's a little bit easier, I think, for me to make a list and where I'm matching what I have yarn-wise with projects. But I have a couple that I'm so excited to cast on. It's generally what I do when I cast off something, I cast on something else the next day or within a day. But since I have 5 whips, I may not do that. We'll see. See how it goes. But this is the first day that I have had where I'll be able to knit whatever the heck I want. So I have a project that I think will be my next cast on that is going to use up all my single skeins of Spin Cycle. In my stash, or most of the single skeins of Spin Cycle. It needs 8 skeins, and I think I've got more than 8, but yeah, I'm going to talk to you about it as it goes, as I start it and stuff, and I'll talk you through. I'll record the process of me sort of figuring out how all those Spin Cycle single skeins that I have are going to work together and make a gorgeous project. But yeah, I think that'll be my next cast on. We'll see. But yeah, that is it for me. I don't have any spinning, as I said, because I just haven't done any, but maybe next time with my making space by putting away the Christmas stuff, I may be able to start spinning again. And I don't have anything else like lifestyle wise. I do have a couple home improvement projects on the horizon, and I'll show you them if they are of interest. I can tell you quickly, if you've been here a while, you know that I've had like quite a time with my 2 hall closets over here. Although I'm not really ready to commit to paying someone a couple $1,000s to do the renovations, I realized that there's a couple easy things that I could do, like put in shelving. So I'm going to be putting shelving into one of them. One of them I'm going to leave alone for now because it's pretty much just my historical stuff and my Christmas stuff. The other one is the one that has all the things that I'm regularly using, like extra linens and my winter coats and stuff like that. So I just need to get that so it's functional, because right now it's non-functional. So I have some shelving coming, and I'm also going to put in a shower door. So I'm going to do it myself. I'm pretty handy. Oh, and I'm going to do my hall light in the hallway. I'm going to install a hall light, which I've had since before I moved in. It's gorgeous. I just didn't install it because I thought that I was going to get work done on the hallway and I didn't want the light to be damaged in any way. But now that I can see that work on the hall closet is at least 6 months away, I'm going to just go ahead and install it, because the lamp that's there is so freaking ugly. I really want to update it. So I'll talk to you about that when it comes. But anyway, thanks so much for hanging out with me today. I hope you learned a couple things maybe that were of interest, or learned about some projects that you hadn't maybe thought about. I do like to knit popular patterns, but I also like to knit sort of more obscure patterns. I don't deliberately seek out one or the other. I more get excited when I see a project that will fit really well with my stash, and then I'm like, yes, that. Or if it's a project that I think will go in my wardrobe really, really well, I get very excited about that. So yeah, anyway, I'll see you next time. I can't wait to share more. Take care.